Today, we're stepping into a story that feels like it's straight out of a Cold War thriller. It's dark, it's chilling. It's about a young woman who stumbled upon a secret, a really lethal one, deep in the heart of Oklahoma. And the powerful forces she exposed, well, they seemed willing to do absolutely anything to silence her.
Exactly. We're looking at the story of Karen Silkwood. This unfolds in the mid-1970s, right in the nerve center of America's nuclear industry. It's a disturbing mix, really. You've got corporate negligence, huge financial stakes, maybe even international espionage, all converging on this one woman.
Karen Silkwood, born 1946, grew up in Texas. Apparently, she was quite sharp, good at chemistry in high school, even got a scholarship to Lamar College. But life took a turn. Some financial problems with her husband, William Meadows, led to bankruptcy. Suddenly, she's a mother of three and she needs a job. And that's how she ends up at the Kerr-McGee Plutonium plant in Crescent, Oklahoma in 1974.
Yeah, she took a job about $4 an hour back then, polishing fuel rods. And these rods were packed with plutonium pellets. This is incredibly dangerous stuff. The safety procedures needed to be perfect, absolutely flawless.
Right. But Karen, she didn't just clock in and clock out. Almost right away, she gets involved. She joins the union, the Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers Union, and she rises fast, becomes the first woman on their bargaining committee. Her job, investigate health and safety issues.
You'd think maybe she was looking for small things, better masks, cleaner changing rooms. But what she started finding pointed to something much worse than just carelessness. It looked like a systemic problem, a rot at the core. And when you're dealing with plutonium, something that can cause horrific damage, any safety compromise is just, well.
It's unthinkable.
And Karen found compromises just about everywhere she looked. Yeah. So let's dig into what she actually reported. This was the summer of '74. She goes to the union, to the AEC, the Atomic Energy Commission. And these weren't just minor slip-ups. No, not at all. She documented workers being routinely exposed to contamination, faulty breathing equipment, not enough showers, improper storage of radioactive samples. The basics were failing. And if the basics aren't right, you have to wonder, what else is going on?
And the what else was. Honestly, it's staggering. Karen found evidence, and the union backed this up later, that Kerr-McGee was actually making faulty fuel rods and then falsifying the inspection records to cover it up, all because they were rushing to meet production quotas. So they're endangering workers and dissuading the government.
But here's where it gets truly terrifying. Beyond the faulty rods and the safety issues, she found evidence suggesting a significant amount of plutonium was missing, unaccounted for. Enough, potentially, to build several nuclear weapons.
Several, not just a rounding error. Later reports suggested maybe 40, even up to 66 pounds of plutonium just gone.
40 pounds of plutonium isn't something you misplace. That's a catastrophic security failure. It goes way beyond negligence. It starts to look deliberate.
So what did Kerr-McGee say about this? How do you explain that much missing material?
Well, initially, they didn't really have a good answer. And you can imagine they weren't exactly thrilled with Karen digging around. She wasn't just threatening to expose bad safety practices. This was potentially a massive security breach with global implications.
Which brings us to November 1974. 3 days that absolutely changed Karen Silkwood's life, permanently. It starts November 5th, end of her shift. She does a routine self-check before heading home. Standard procedure.
And this is where it escalates, dramatically. The radiation detectors just went wild. She wasn't just contaminated on her skin. She had internal contamination, almost 400 times the legal limit of plutonium.
Just absorb that number.
Yep.
400 times the safe limit. She's rushed through decontamination, sent home. But the next day, they investigate how it happened. And what they find is deeply disturbing.
They find plutonium traces inside the gloves she'd been using.
Inside? How?
Exactly. The gloves themselves, they weren't torn, no holes, perfectly intact. So the question becomes, how does plutonium get inside a sealed glove? It really points to one chilling conclusion. Someone deliberately put it there to contaminate her directly. It feels targeted.
But it didn't end there. The next day, November 6th, she comes back to work. She's still testing positive for contamination, even after the decontamination the day before. And she'd only handled paperwork that day, so back through decontamination again.
Right. And then the third day, November 7th, she walks into the plant and she's already dangerously contaminated to the point where she was breathing out contaminated air from her lungs.
3 days in a row, increasingly severe. This was clearly not accidental.
No. At this point, the company had to react publicly. They sent a team to her house, and they found plutonium traces everywhere. Her home was saturated. They basically had to tear it apart, strip it down. It was destroyed. And Karen, she was sent off to Los Alamos National Lab for intensive testing.
Karen herself was convinced. She said they were deliberately contaminating her, poisoning her, because she was blowing the whistle.
Kerr-McGee, though, pushed back with a truly awful accusation. They claimed she contaminated herself to make the company look bad.
But does the evidence support that, the self-contamination idea?
Not really. When you look at the forensics, it falls apart pretty quickly.
Yeah.
The specific type of plutonium found in her body, they traced it back to a part of the plant she hadn't even been in for 4 months. So it was physically impossible for her to have gotten that specific plutonium on herself during her recent work.
Okay, that's a huge piece of evidence against their claim.
It is, and there's more. Later on, when they examined her organs, yes, there was contamination in her lungs, which suggests she inhaled some. But the highest concentration was found in her stomach and digestive tract, which points strongly towards ingestion, swallowing it.
Swallowing it. So not just breathing dust or getting it on her skin.
Exactly. That pattern makes accidental workplace contamination seem highly unlikely. It looks much more like a calculated, deliberate poisoning, maybe in her food or drink. The company's denial, frankly, seems pretty unbelievable given these facts.
So even after all this being contaminated, possibly poisoned, her house destroyed. Karen doesn't back down. She spends the next week pulling together all her documentation, company papers, evidence. She contacts a reporter from the New York Times.
She was determined to get the story out. The faulty rods, the safety issues, and crucially, the missing plutonium. This was it.
So November 13th, 1974. Evening. Karen goes to a union meeting. People there saw her.
Witnesses confirmed she had this big binder with her and a packet of documents, too. She was ready.
And he leaves the meeting, gets in her car, a little Honda Civic. She's heading towards Oklahoma City, about a 300-mile drive, to meet that journalist.
But she never makes it to the meeting. Later that night, they find her car. It had gone off State Highway 74, hit a concrete culvert wing wall. Karen Silkwood was dead. She was 28 years old.
And here's the detail that immediately raises red flags. That binder, the packet of documents, all the evidence she was carrying.
Gone. Vanished from the car. And they've never, ever been found.
So the police look at the scene. What's their take?
The official police conclusion was that she fell asleep at the wheel. They found methaclone quaaludes and some marijuana in the car. The coroner reported she had almost double the dose of quaaludes recommended to make someone drowsy.
Okay, so that sounds plausible on the surface, but her union, her family, they weren't buying it. Why would she take that much sedative right before driving to meet a reporter for the biggest story of her life? A story exposing potentially criminal activity.
It just doesn't track logically. She was on a mission.
And was there physical evidence at the crash site that contradicted the fell asleep theory?
There was. People who looked closely at her car later pointed out dents and paint scrapes on the rear bumper, consistent with being hit from behind. Also, the skid marks on the road didn't look like someone drifting off. They apparently suggested sharp corrective steering, like she was fighting to control the car after being impacted.
Hit from behind. Pushed off the road.
That was the suspicion. Plus, her family mentioned she'd received several threatening phone calls just before her death. It paints a very different picture.
The whole situation, her death, the missing documents, it caused a huge uproar.
Absolutely. It forced a federal investigation into the Kerr-McGee plant, and that investigation. It confirmed many of Karen's allegations about safety violations and faulty procedures.
And the plant itself.
Under all that pressure and scrutiny, Kerr-McGee shut down the Cimarron plant completely in 1975.
But the fight wasn't over for her family.
No way. Her father and her kids, they filed a major lawsuit against Kerr-McGee. They argued the company's negligence, specifically its willful negligence, led directly to her plutonium contamination.
And that trial in 1979 sounds like it was incredibly intense.
Oh, absolutely brutal. Reports from the time detail intense pressure and intimidation tactics. The family's lawyers faced harassment, even physical assault. A key witness apparently committed suicide just before testifying. An investigator working for the family disappeared under mysterious circumstances.
This wasn't just a legal dispute. It felt like something else entirely.
It really did. But despite all that, the jury sided with the family. They found Kerr-McGee liable and awarded the estate $10.5 million in punitive damages, a massive sum back then.
And what were the key findings that led to that verdict?
The jury basically concluded 3 things. 1, Kerr-McGee had lied to its workers and the public about how dangerous plutonium really was. 2, they had defrauded the government by knowingly producing defective fuel rods. And 3, security at the plant was so lax that, yes, up to 40 pounds of plutonium was either lost or stolen. enough for potentially 4 bombs.
So a huge victory for the family, validating Karen's claims. But did it stick?
Well, Kerr-McGee fought back hard, legally. They appealed. The huge punitive award was reduced significantly on appeal. Then it went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court actually reversed the punitive damages award entirely.
Reversed it? On what grounds?
It was based on a legal doctrine called federal preemption. Basically, the court ruled that regulating nuclear safety is exclusively a federal government job, not something states could impose penalties for through civil lawsuits like this one. It gave Kerr-McGee a way out from that massive financial penalty.
So after all that, what was the final outcome?
Years later, in 1986, the case was finally settled out of court. Kerr-McGee agreed to pay the estate $1.38 million. Importantly, as part of the settlement, they admitted no wrongdoing. But many saw that payment as a quiet acknowledgement of responsibility.
But there's still that lingering question about the missing plutonium and the circumstances of her death. Did her lawyers have a theory about what was really going on?
They did, and it's the darkest layer of this whole story. The estate's attorneys came to believe Karen hadn't just uncovered corporate negligence. They suspected she'd accidentally stumbled onto something much, much bigger.
Bigger how?
They floated a truly explosive theory. They suggested the missing plutonium wasn't just lost due to bad accounting or even petty theft. They believed it was part of an organized, clandestine smuggling operation to secretly funnel nuclear materials out of the U.S.
Smuggling plutonium.
Yeah.
To where?
Their theory pointed towards Israel, potentially other countries too. They even suggested involvement from high-level government figures, international intelligence agencies. They named the CIA, Britain's MI5, Israeli Mossad, maybe even a shadowy group of Iranians connected to the Shah's regime at the time.
Wow, so they're alleging a massive international conspiracy.
Yes. A conspiracy involving governments and spy agencies smuggling nuclear bomb material. And their implication was that Karen Silkwood, by uncovering the missing plutonium, had unknowingly threatened to expose this entire operation. Under this theory, her death wasn't just about Kerr-McGee covering up safety issues. It was a state-sponsored assassination to protect this global secret.
That's an incredibly serious allegation. Hard to prove, obviously.
Extremely hard. But it speaks to the level of suspicion and the unanswered questions surrounding the case, especially the missing plutonium and the nature of her death.
And what about her family, her children? How did they view her legacy?
It seems there were differing perspectives. Her son, Michael, reportedly felt immense pride in what she did, standing up for worker safety. Her daughter, Dawn, however, was quoted later as feeling her mother was maybe something of a troublemaker, perhaps reflecting the immense personal cost and disruption her actions brought to their lives.
That's understandable given everything they went through.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But regardless of the ultimate conspiracy, the undeniable fact is that Karen Silkwood's actions and her death blew the lid off serious problems. It forced federal investigations, led to plant closure, and highlighted the terrifying risks when corporate secrecy meets nuclear materials.
And those documents she was carrying, the proof she intended to give the reporter, were still missing.
Still missing. Lost somewhere on that Oklahoma highway, or taken. We'll likely never know what exactly they contained.
So when you piece it all together, the confirmed safety violations, the shocking amount of missing plutonium, those 3 horrifying days of contamination, the physical evidence at the crash scene suggesting foul play. What deeper truth do you think was ultimately buried along with Karen Silkwood that night? What secrets remain hidden? If you found this story compelling and you're looking for more deep dives into true crime and unsettling documentaries, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Horror Docs.